A lot of us don't even realize when we're walking around in shame. We're operating sometimes out of a shame-based place, and we don't even realize it. And it's one of those things where when you're in it, it's hard to even know it sometimes. And so to be able to you can't read the label from inside the bottle kind of thing. So what I want to do is just raise our level of awareness to the things that give indication that we're experiencing shame. The idea being, ideally we can catch, excuse me, the idea being that we can catch some of it on the front end, like when it just first starts. Sorry. We can catch it on the front end when it first starts, but I'm even thinking doing that thing to where you can't always catch it, right? You can't always avoid it. Sometimes it just hits, it's just on you, it just is. And if we can just see, if we have the awareness to see oh, that's what's going on with me, then we can do something about it. We're not going to talk, in this teaching, we're not going to talk about what to do about it. We'll save that for next time. What I want to do in this one is raise our awareness level that it is what we're experiencing, okay? So here we go. We're thinking about this in a quadrants mindset. So mind, heart, body, soul. Hi, y'all. Sorry for the interruption. Hey, if these videos are helpful to you, I hope that you'll like and subscribe. And if you want more content like this, as well as live teaching calls with our team, hope that you'll check out the Worthy of Our Trust Academy. You'll find the link for that in the description. And now let's get back to the video. So there are indicators at large going on within our mind, within our heart, within our body, physiologically, and within our soul or spirit, that give an indication that we're experiencing shame. And so this isn't an exhaustive list in any way. This is, like you hear me say so often, common things that I see, things that show up at my house and at most people's houses when we're doing this work. Okay? So here we go. We're starting with mind. So this is what's going on in our mind that gives indication as a sign that we might be experiencing shame. Okay? Starting with the things we're saying to ourselves about ourselves or other people. I'm a, she's a, they're a, fill in the blank with a shame statement. Something that is specifically addressing being. Okay? So, I'm a failure. I'm an idiot. I'm stupid. She's stupid. She's an idiot. They're an idiot. We just start to use being-oriented behavior and make being-oriented statements about ourselves. For some of us, when we're feeling shame, everything kind of turns inward. For others of us, when we're feeling shame, we start to sort of like deflect everything outward. So I'm not the problem, you're the problem, they're the problem, he's the problem, she's the problem, my work's the problem, somebody else is the problem, Jason's the problem. I'm good at being the problem. So I'm, she's, there, fill in the blank with a being statement. That's often an indication that shame is tapped within us. Rehearsing negative narratives. We all have negative narratives that we rehearse when the shame comes up. Maybe for you, the way that you experience that, oh, hold on just a second, there we go. Maybe the way that you experience that is something about your life and your situation. Something that I'll hear myself say sometimes is, can't win for losing. That's a phrase that I heard growing up. Can't win for losing. Sometimes when I'm experiencing shame, especially shame around failure, I'll start to hear myself say, man, can't win for losing. And in some ways it's a mantra, but I don't want to think of it in the sort of framework of mantra. I want to think of it as a negative narrative that we rehearse. Okay? Oftentimes, those negative narratives will have infinitives. This is our always, never, every time, never, every. All right, everybody's familiar with that. Which also, by the way, if you've been around us for a while, you know that's also an indicator that intimacy aversion is kicking in and we're pushing back relationally from ourselves, from God, and from other people. When we hear the infinitives, that's a tell, okay? That's a sign of shame. Intimacy aversion is also driven by shame. So they go hand in hand. So rehearsing negative narratives, it's always going to be this way. She's never gonna, I'm never gonna, we're always gonna, whatever. There are infinitives and negative narratives that go on in there, okay? Three eyes. Oftentimes when we're experiencing shame, we'll start to within our own mind think the three eyes about ourselves. I am incompetent. I am a failure. I am insignificant. I don't matter. I am powerless. I can't make anything different. We'll start to rehearse those things that are three eyes oriented in our minds. Okay? That's often to tell that there is shame happening. It's the way that we're thinking. Lying to ourselves. So this is one of those insidious ones, man. Sometimes we'll lie to ourselves in the form of like, that didn't happen. We'll tell ourselves we didn't do whatever it was when we're feeling shame. Sometimes we'll just warp the story. This is one way. We'll just warp the story in our head. Again, it's very insidious, but when we're feeling shame, we'll start to twist the story. We feel shame about an interaction we had with someone, and we'll start to, in our own mind, start to warp it into this way of like, I was actually justified for popping off and giving them the bird because they were really the first person and cut me off in traffic. And we start to do this like manipulating thing in our own mind. A lot of times that's an indicator that there's shame. Sometimes we'll just tell ourselves that didn't happen. Like I didn't do that. That's not what I did. I just, we kind of start blocking it out and compartmentalizing it, going, no, that's not me. That can't be me. I wouldn't have. I'm not going to. I won't again. And we start like telling ourselves these stories about it not happening, which for most of us will recognize as part of our self-protective mechanism in our addictions. After we did whatever we swore we wouldn't do again, for some of us, that's a familiar feeling of going, did I just do that? I couldn't have just done that. I didn't just do that. That wasn't what I thought it was. That wasn't what it feels like it was. That wasn't what I think it was. I probably didn't go all the way or do that thing or some version thereof. There's like this lie that we do within ourselves. Okay? That's a sign that there's shame. What we're feeling is that shame, that sense about ourselves that is such a lie. It's so untrue. It's that statement of our value and worth, right? Remember with shame, the idea of shame, let's go back up here real quick. Choose a different color just for fun. Remember when we talk about the idea of shame, what we're saying is unlovable, unforgivable, worthless. That's kind of the message of shame. Okay? I'm unlovable, unforgivable, and worthless. That's the message of shame. So we'll start, when we do something, we experience shame, or something's done to us and we experience shame, we'll start to lie to ourselves and go, that wasn't what it was. I didn't do that. I didn't do that way. I didn't do that all the way. And we got to go through these iterations. And for some of us in our addictions, we actually started really believing our own lies. Okay? As messed up as that is the truth for some of us. That is our story. Okay, so in our recoveries, we can start to hear ourselves do that. That can be a tell that we have to deal with what's going on inside of us, which is that shame. Okay. All right, let's keep going. Escapist thoughts. For some of us, this isn't true across the board. For some of us, it's a tell that we're experiencing shame when we start to have escapist thoughts. I want out of my life. It's not that I want out of this marriage or away from her. It's not that. It's just, I can't handle my life. I wish I could just be alone in the woods. I wish I could just, for a weekend, for a week, for the rest of my life. I wish that I could just quit this job and go into ministry. I wish I could just quit this ministry job and go back into corporate, whatever. There's an escapist element to it. That's a sign that we're experiencing shame. Okay. Sometimes that also has a unique flavor to it that is solo. Maybe this is just for the introverts in the room. Oftentimes that escapist thought will have a solo element to it. It's not, I want to ride off into the sunset with my affair partner. It's not, I want to go back to my girlfriend from when we were 16. It's not that I want out of my life as it is with my wife and my family. it has this flavor of like, I just want to be alone. I just don't want to have to face anyone. And there's this very solo element to it. Again, if you're an introvert, sometimes it can feel that way anyway, and it's not shame. But if you're a raging introvert especially, but takes one to know one. But oftentimes when we hear ourselves in our own mind going, I just want to be alone. I don't want to have to interact with anyone. I don't have to see anyone. I don't have to talk to anyone. I just want to be alone. That has an escapist kind of solo feel to it. Again, neon sign flashing going, shame, shame. All right. And part of the reason I want to harp on that, give me just one more second there. Part of the reason I want to harp on that is because that is counter to our design. It's counter to our design. We are created for connection and community with ourselves, with God, and with others. So to escape from that and be solo is counter to our design. Shame drives us towards what is counter to our design. Okay? So, escapist thoughts. Home and parents. So I'm gonna come back and talk about that in just a minute. But know that sometimes a longing for home or some inclination towards our parents can be an indication of shame. I'll come back to that and explain it in a minute. Okay. So mind. So mentally, this is the idea here is like these are signs of shame. These are the things that we can be aware of and know within ourselves that when I'm thinking, man, I just wish I could get away by myself this weekend. And, it seems like I'm never going to get it. And boy, I can't seem to win for losing. It's like ding, ding, ding. Okay. That's not the truth of me and our situation. That's the shame talking. It's almost like it coats us like oil, just runs over us. Okay, so that's what that's about. What's the mind aspect as it pertains to shame? Okay, let's go to heart. So when we think heart, we were just talking about this on a team call today. We use the word heart a lot, and sometimes we're using it in different ways and with different meanings. And we're not, if you use a word with too many different ways, sometimes it doesn't have any meaning at all. So when I'm talking about heart here, what I'm talking about is emotions. I'm talking about emotion. I'm talking about the things that we feel emotionally. Okay. It's also kind of funny because we point to our heart, but it's actually in our head, which is also confusing. But you get the point. We're talking about heart. We're talking about emotions. Okay. Signs of shame. When I'm feeling the 3 I's, when I'm feeling that I feel wholly inadequate and incompetent, that feeling is an indication of shame. I feel like nobody cares that I'm on the planet, and that's insignificance. I feel like I can't make a difference no matter what I do. That's impotence. That is shame. And it's not just a sign of shame, that is shame. But that is also a signal, just recognizing that we're feeling that. Familiar feelings from 6 to 16. So this is where I want to camp, and I want to just connect a dot here, okay? That goes with that. Okay? So this is nuanced. Okay, it's not true across the board, but I just want you to consider this in your own story. A lot of times the signal that we're experiencing shame is when we're experiencing familiar negative feelings from when we were 6 to 16. Negative. Okay? Some of y'all have heard me tell the story about the dentist office, right? I used to have terrible dental hygiene, and I had horrible dental experiences. I basically have a Kia in my mouth in terms of dental work. Like, it's just bad. It's not bad anymore. It was bad. And so horrible experiences, I would feel so much anxiety, so overwhelmed, so much panic, so much fear going into the dentist office. Fast forward, I'm 40 years old and I'm sitting in the dentist chair before the doctor comes in, the dentist comes in, and I'm cross-legged, crossed arms, tensed up, just like, oh gosh. And I'm just a kid. I am a small child sitting in the chair in a grown man's body. And everything about my posture and everything else was kid. Right? And what was going on in that moment was very familiar. The fear, the anxiety, the panic was very familiar. It was actually shame. When I was a kid and I would be in the dentist's office, there was a point where I got old enough that I was embarrassed by how bad my dental hygiene was, right? I knew walking in the disdain, the disappointment and disdain on the hygienist's face and on the dentist's face, and the tone of his voice. I can still remember that dude. I can still hear the tone of his voice when he would tell my mom, what was going to need to be done, and there's cavities again, blah, blah, blah. There's shame with that. Those feelings are familiar. Sometimes they show up in the dentist's office. Sometimes they show up in my living room sitting across from Shelley. The same panic, the same fear, the same wanting to close off and tense up, and those things show up. It tells you shame is going on. Some of us, we don't recognize when those old familiar feelings come up in us. And before we know it, we're sitting in the chair across from our wives, and our legs are crossed, and our arms are crossed, and our face is like tensed, and our shoulders are tensed, and our jaws clenched, and we're just waiting for the drill. For our wives to share their pain, and we're just actually experiencing shame. Okay. Here's where that connects back over here. For some people, home and parents are the source of shame. I say that. Brokenness and sin is the source of shame. The fall is the source of shame. Satan is the source of shame. And parentally, some of us, we got hand-me-down shame. We got additional shame. Okay? For others of us, there are things about home, even in dysfunction, where there's comfort. There's reassurance. There's some sense of security. There's something that offsets the shame. So for some people, an indication that we're feeling shame, a sign of shame, is that we have a longing towards home. We have an inclination towards connecting with a parent. So let me tell you how this shows up. A couple will be in a situation post-betrayal where things are sideways and there's tension and there's triggers and it's just a really hard space. And a husband goes, "Hey, I'm gonna stop by my mom's. She's 82. I'm gonna stop by my mom's on the way home." And so okay, great. Go by, check on mom, come home, have a conversation. And a wife goes, "What'd you do at your mom's?" And he goes, "Oh, I hung that picture in the hallway." And the wife goes, "You mean the one of your brother and you when y'all were in?" "Oh yeah." "Wait, what? Why'd you do that today? She's been wanting you to hang that picture for like 3 years. Why today?" And the husband goes, "Well, she brought it up and was sitting down and I happened to have a nail and a hammer." And instead, what we don't realize is actually the trip over to mom's was a source of comfort. And that source of comfort was needed because, I'm not saying it's appropriate, I'm saying it was a felt need because there was actually shame. And the reason you went by to hang the picture today randomly after 3 years is because for some reason there was shame that was associated, shame that you were experiencing, and something about the association with home was comforting to offset it. I hear those kinds of stories, over the years. I hear those kinds of stories consistently where I'm speaking for husbands here. Happens for wives too, okay? But I'm speaking for husbands here, where there'll be some connection back to parents. Post-betrayal, a wife's going, "I can't stand your parents. Your dad makes all sorts of lewd comments and he has roaming eyes, and your mom, y'all are enmeshed, and it's just a mess. It's just, I can't stand your parents." And then in the middle of a difficult time and season, a husband is going, "Yeah, I'm calling my mom on the way home. I'm calling my dad on the way home from work." And it's like a wife's going, "Haven't you heard me say, I don't want you talking to them right now?" The husband's going, "Well, I can't just disown my parents, and I'm not just going to blacklist them and never talk to them again." And while all that's true, what he sometimes doesn't realize is he's just looking for comfort. There's something in him that's looking for the reassurance from his dad in that conversation. Sometimes the longing for home, especially when there are familiar old negative feelings going on inside of us, there can be a longing for home, can be an indication, a sign of shame. Okay? Listen, just for the record, I'm not vilifying. You want to call your mom. You want to pop by and check in on your 87-year-old mother. I'm not vilifying that anyway. What I'm saying is it's just important to ask ourselves, especially contextually with what's going on in our lives, if that fits, if it makes sense. Like if Tuesday night is the night that you normally pop in and check on your mom, and you happen to go by on a Tuesday and hang the picture, and life is fairly normal, okay, it's great. It just was what it was. But if Tuesday's your night and you actually make a special trip over there on a Friday morning, and you cut out of work to do it, and you also shortchange the conversation that y'all had Thursday night, maybe there's some shame. Maybe we need to rethink whether going by mom's is the right answer. Okay. So these two are connected. Okay. Let's keep going. From an emotional standpoint, signs of shame. Inevitability. I talked recently on one of these teachings about futility. Inevitability can be kind of a cousin of futility. For some of us, we start to have feelings of inevitability. It's like only a matter of time before I screw it up again. It's only a matter of time before she's just upset again. It's like this inevitable boogeyman, hiding around the corner of when I screw up again, or when I'm going to say the wrong thing again, or when I'm going to forget to do my homework again, or whatever. That feeling of inevitability, sometimes that's just a real valid thing. Like, there is a feeling of inevitability because we know there's going to be another trigger and it's going to be a hard conversation. That's a little different than when inevitability is informed by shame. It almost has this like victim-y, sometimes martyr-y, kind of like passive external locus of control to it. The inevitability of what's going to happen to me again is kind of how it feels. Okay, so that can be an indicator of shame. Irritability. You just find you're just annoyed. You're annoyed in traffic. You're annoyed by the seam of your pants and the noise it makes when you walk, and you're annoyed by what your dog does and where your kids sit and blah. Okay, hey, it might be a sign there's some shame going on. It might not be that you're just irritable. It might be that there's some shame going on. Okay, numb. So I'm gonna camp here for a second too. I think too often, guys, I'm speaking to husbands here, I think too often we overlook numb. Sometimes we're in a place where we don't even conceptualize that, like within ourselves, we're sort of unmoved by what all we've done. We're unmoved largely by how impacted our wife is. The stuff Jason's teaching just falls flat. The stuff your coach is trying to guide you through and you're just numb. And sometimes that there is shame going on, and your numbness is your coping skill for the shame. That's a signal. That's a sign. It's not just a blah day and it's overcast. For those of you that like the sun shining, I know there are people that get giddy when it's overcast. So numb just needs to be something for some of us we need to be on the lookout for. All right, there's others who are going, I don't really know numb. I don't ever feel numb. I either feel up or down, or I feel chaos, but I don't feel numb. Okay, doesn't apply to you. For some people, numb is a very clear indicator of shame. Okay, body. So mind, heart, body, soul. Let's talk body for a minute. So I think this is my own personal opinion. I think oftentimes shame expressed physically is the easiest to see. Sometimes we can't even see our own thoughts or hear our own thoughts, if you will, when this stuff is going on. Sometimes we're not even aware of what's going on emotionally. We don't realize that a Friday morning trip to hang the picture at mom's house is a thing, or we're just numb. I think often the physical signs of shame can be the easiest to see, okay? So let's talk about this. So, exhaustion or manicness. For some people, your exhaustion isn't because you're staying up all hours talking, although that's a thing. It's not because you're working so hard, although that's a thing, or you got 7 kids and there's a ton of parenting happening. It's a thing. For some of us, the exhaustion that we feel, in addition to all of that, is actually shame. For some of us, the response that our physiological bodies have to shame is like fatigue. Like we feel it. We feel tired in our bones. For some of us, that's because we got 7 kids. For others, because shame is happening in us. Okay? For others, it's manicness. And I say manic, I kind of don't love that word, but it's descriptive. We're up, we're going. Sometimes for some people, shame shows up in that we're doing the dishes and we're mopping the floor and we're cleaning the carpet and then we're going outside and we're pulling weeds and and it's like the pace speeds up. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But there's a tell in how much we're doing. For some people, it shuts us down and exhausts us. For other people, it I'm not saying like it's a motivator. I'm saying like our response to it is almost to be so busy that we don't have to feel it, to do so much that we don't have to experience it. Okay, so that can be a tell. Tics. So I mentioned this recently on a teaching call too. We all, generally speaking, have a tell that shame is happening in the physical tics. It might be a picking, it might be nails, nail biting, it might be tapping a pencil or clicking your feet or whatever. Right? It might be the way that you scratch your head, maybe the top of your head where you slammed into the corner and gashed the top of your bald head, potentially, hypothetically. We all have those things. And so it's important to be able to identify. You just kind of know when I start like picking at things, that's a tell that I'm experiencing shame. It's a physical manifestation of the fact that I'm not okay inside me. It's a tell on shame, okay? Sign of shame. Cravings. Again, this can go into the tertiary markers category. So can tics. That can go into the tertiary marker category, tertiary threat category. Some of us have particular cravings when it comes to shame around like food, around substances, around materials. For some of us, shame is associated with trauma, and some of the things that are connected to trauma can be textures or sometimes even textiles. We talk about grounding exercises where sometimes just feeling the corduroy of your pant can be a soothing thing, a calming thing. For some of us, we have cravings for things. Sometimes, again, those come back here. Let's see if we can get over here to cravings. You haven't dipped since you were 17. You quit when you were 17, but you did it from 15 to 17, or where I grew up in Oklahoma, from 12 to 17. And you find yourself in a place where you're 57 years old, and for the first time in a long time, you're going, I'm thinking about popping into the convenience store and getting a can of Skull. And it's like, hold on. That craving can be an indicator that there's some shame, probably tied to some familiar stuff from back in the day. Okay? So cravings can be a part of that. Habits. For some of us, we just have habits that are associated with our shame. It can be physical habits, meaning like the way we drive, the clothes that we wear. Listen, here's a not common, but I've seen it multiple times. A husband who's experiencing shame will go into his closet without realizing it, put on clothes that don't fit, either that are too small or that are too big. Clothes that don't fit. And it's not just a matter of I gained a few pounds. It's not just a matter of, man, I hadn't been shopping in a while. It's actually a subconscious representation of what I'm experiencing within myself. Sometimes there's a habit there of grabbing that shirt because that's the old familiar shirt that hides some of what's going on with me these days, and always has. So there can be habits that are familiar that are associated with shame. Okay, food, I won't belabor the point. Eating too much, eating too little, craving certain things, sugar, sweets, old treats from back in the day, whatever that is. Sleep, too much sleep, back to exhaustion. Not enough sleep because you're up, thinking, feeling, just can't sleep, right? Those can be indicators. And then physiological. When I think physiological, for some of us, we experience shame in a physiological way that we feel heart palpitations. We feel our heart racing. We sweat inordinately. We feel it like weird stuff in our hands, tingling in our hands or our feet. We feel something in our gut that feels a little bit nauseous and a little bit like weight and pressure and bad pizza. And we've just never associated like that thing right there is shame. It's not just food and what I ate, it's shame. Okay, so what's going on physiologically can be a representation of shame. Okay, feel the flushness in your face. That can be an indication of shame. Okay, so mind, heart, body, soul. Let's talk soul for just a minute yet, and then I'll be off the soapbox. So spiritually, sometimes we can see signs of shame in what's going on within us spiritually. By avoidance, you find yourself just wanting to avoid church, people from church, not wanting to open your Bible, not wanting to listen to that radio station that you know has uplifting music for you, not wanting to listen to podcasts that are solid teaching. You just find yourself wanting to avoid all of that, any of that. That can be a tell that there's shame. Condemnation, and specifically self-condemnation. From a spiritual standpoint, we walk around, for some of us, when we feel shame, we walk around going, clearly I grieve the Holy Spirit. Clearly I've committed an unforgivable sin. Clearly I am no longer saved. My salvation is in jeopardy. And it's not just a legitimate thing we're worried about or wondering about. It's the condemnation thing that we do to ourselves every time we feel shame. Right? Which also comes with penance. For some of us, it's like we think if we can show everybody around us just how bad we feel about ourselves, that somehow that makes everything better. And so we'll mope around and we'll cancel stuff and we'll decline phone calls and we'll, I don't know, set our golf shoes on fire or whatever your thing is. Like, you throw your things in the trash. We'll do stuff that tries to like show penance, pay penance. And it's not necessary. It's really just an indication of shame. Okay. 3 eyes. Sometimes from a spiritual standpoint, we'll start in on those 3 eyes. We'll have that sense in our spirit of like, maybe God really doesn't see me. Maybe I really am insignificant to him. Right? Maybe I really am powerless. Not from the sense of God is the highest, higher power, but like maybe he didn't equip me to make a difference in the world. Maybe he didn't equip me to be the one to carry my wife's pain. And we start to go into this place of like the 3 eyes directly relative to God. Okay. Eisegesis. For those of you who don't know what that means reading into something with our bias. What will happen for a lot of people as a tell on shame, a sign of shame, is they'll open their Bible and they'll start to read with a bias towards disappointment, disapproval, condemnation. It's almost like you do Bible roulette, and the page that you turn to, it's like, and it's like sexual idolaters will go to hell. And then you flip over and you're like, oh, I don't want that. Okay. Well, and then you play another one, and then there's some parable about infidelity. And then you almost like find the things that confirm how you feel about yourself. Sometimes it's the Holy Spirit going, hey, I need you to see something. Sometimes it's just that we're almost like reading into the scriptures out of our shame, because that's all we can see, and we don't realize that it's our shame informing it. One line below, it's like one line below, one paragraph below or above whatever we just read about God's disappointment and disapproval is probably a line about God's love and acceptance, about grace and forgiveness. But we won't see that because we're reading into the text out of our shame. Okay? Fighting offsetting messages. Again, not for everybody. Some of us, it's like the Holy Spirit is inside of us going, hey, you are a good man. And we go, no, I'm not. Look what I've done. But just today, look what I did. She's hurt again. She's angry again. I can't seem to do this. I always screw up. And that voice inside of us goes, I know, but I love you. I'm not lovable. And it's like we fight, this offsetting message that it's like God's trying to deliver in us sometimes. And we're like, no. I can't hear that. I won't hear that. And we don't realize that's shame. That's the shame within us going, I can't let that in. I can't let that in. And sometimes we just look at that and go, I'm having a bad day. Sometimes we look at that and go, my relationship with God is strained. Both of those things could be true. Or it could be that you're actually swimming in shame today and didn't even realize it. And once you deal with that shame, once you address that shame, those messages will actually start to seep through a little bit deeper. Okay, so mind, heart, body, soul. These are all ways that we can see. These are all signals, if you will, of shame happening within us. Okay, last thing, a simple way, way oversimplified thing for us to think about where shame shows up is you can think of this in terms of 3 P's: pace, people, patience. This is bonus, okay? Pace, people, and patience. These are just 3 easy ways a lot of times to see that there is shame happening. For some of us, I said over here, for some of us, shame slows us down. It's like it drags us down, we're running with a parachute. For some of us, shame speeds us up. You just start to be moving faster, you forget more things, you drop more balls or plates, whatever metaphor you want to use, like you just speed up. Okay? Some of you in your recovery, you're familiar with a faster scale. This has to do with speeding up in the faster scale. So what happens with our pace? What happens with people? I want to push back. I'm irritated. I feel frustrated. I have angst about people. That can be a tell, and just an easy thing to see about shame. Right? Patience. Some of us, we're just not very patient people anyway. Join the club. But our patience gets really, really, really thin when shame is activated within us. Like, it doesn't take much to like pull the trigger within us whenever there's shame happening. A lot of times, how thin our patience is can be a quick tell. Okay? So, bonus material, mind, heart, body, soul, and also just look at pace, people, and patience. The idea of shame as being, remember shame as being a self-concept or a sense of self. It can be an identity. It's a sense about ourselves that it's actually associated with our behavior, but it's an indictment on our being. Okay, it's associated with our behavior, but it's an indictment on our being. Okay? So this goes back to, there's an N in there, I promise. This goes back to that whole guilt, shame, and conviction thing. It's like I can feel conviction that goes, yeah, I did screw up again today, and I shouldn't have gone to hang the picture at my mom's house. And I do feel like every page I turn to is saying, hey, don't be angry or whatever. And yeah, it does remind me of what's going on when I was 16 years old. And there's a conviction that says I'm dearly loved and infinitely valuable, and the way that I'm behaving is not okay. The way that I'm responding is not okay. And there's like a conviction about the behavior, but not an indictment on the being. Whereas shame is an indictment on being. Shame, the difference is that shame starts to send the message of who we are, not just what we do. And out of that is where we start to get sideways. And we think about, we go back to just a super simple thing in terms of backbone diagram, life situations, emotions, 3 eyes, needs. All of the cycles of destruction over here are the byproduct of shame, which are really the 3 eyes anyway. So it's that idea of conviction and guilt versus shame, and the delineator is it's a statement of my being. It's an indictment on my being. Okay. So I'll say one more thing and then I'll be done. Everybody's going to get 10 minutes of their day back. So I was having this conversation with David from our team yesterday, and we're talking about how for some people, he actually raised this, and I was at first I wanted to challenge him on it, but then as he unpacked it a little bit, I was like, yeah, that's a really good point. For some of us, we attend this and watch and go, oh, that's neat, Jason. And then that's it. And we feel like we did something because we showed up. And so listen, I'm encouraging you not to be lulled into that. I'm encouraging you not to be lulled into that. I'm encouraging you to take what we've done and what we've talked about today and apply it to your life starting today. Starting today. There should be conversations that happen where a husband goes, hey, wife, hey, can I talk to you about something from that whole Signs of Shame webinar? Because I've been thinking about how the dentist freaks me out. I never thought about how it's connected to the past. And that whole sugar craving thing that I have just really makes that much worse. There should be conversations where a husband's going, hey, I vilify the crap out of you in my head when I feel shame. And when he wrote Shiza and talked about that, just dawned on me. I go to you, I make you the bad guy when actually I feel like the bad guy. Whether I am or not, when I feel that, I make you the bad guy. And that's been a long-standing thing for us, and I'm sorry. There should be conversations where we take what we've done here and apply it to our lives in a way that then creates a meaningful conversation. And listen, every wife on this represented may go, yeah, I don't believe it. Yeah, it's nonsense. Yeah, you're just having this conversation. Jason told you have to. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is all of us as husbands going, watch that webinar. It was good. And we don't do anything else with it. We don't do anything else with it. Because we really didn't do anything if that's all we did. So I'm urging y'all, take and apply. Right? Let this create a meaningful conversation between y'all at some point this week, because you're inviting her into a conversation that gives her a window into how you're processing this stuff and actually doing work.
Sorry, I came in a little bit late today. One of the things that you wrote on the board was the 3 I's. So if I'm understanding this correctly, can I assume that if one of the 3 I's is being tapped, there's shame behind that?
Yes. Yeah. In my head, where it's really messy sometimes, I just think of the 3 I's as shame. Shame has 3 forms in my world: insignificant, incompetent, impotent. Right? So I just think of the 3 I's as shame. But that can also be, I can kind of parse that out to, sometimes it's a way that I feel about God feeling about me. Sometimes it's just kind of a message that's ruminating in my head. Sometimes it's an emotion that I feel within myself. So I can kind of parse it out. But I just think 3 I's, that's shame. And again, take this back to its, okay, so bonus. If you need to go, you can jump off. I take this back to a sort of a biblical anthropology. Okay, and I don't want to try to be too convoluted here, but I take this back to a biblical anthropology that who we are is dearly loved and infinitely valuable. We matter more than anything to God. Okay, so we're infinitely valuable. That offsets our insignificance. There's nothing about us in terms of insignificance. That is a complete fraud and a lie. It is originating from original sin and shame and added onto by Satan. And okay, so the insignificance is a non-thing. If I'm feeling that and it becomes a thing, it's because it is shame. It is not a point of origin. Incompetence, God has uniquely equipped all of us with certain gifts and skills and things that he has for us to do on the planet that he intended before time and will see through in us if we'll allow him to. And I look at that and I go, incompetence is shame. That's not an original thing. Incompetence is shame. It's an original sin thing. Impotence. We are agents of change. We are agents of creation and creativity. We have agency. It is imputed into us in our divine creation, his divine creation of us. So I look at that and I go, that's not original. That's shame when that comes up. Because at the core, again, fallen nature is in there, but at the core, we are dearly loved, infinitely valuable, put on the planet intentionally at a specific time in human history to do things with skills and gifts that God gave us to actually make a difference in the world. Ta-da. Most of the time, I mean, I'll just say at my house, most of the time, negative feedback from Shelley is just pointing to something that I already feel, right? It's very rarely is it something new that I've never seen before. It's actually something that I already feel shame about, and she's just raising that it's there again, that it's manifesting again. So when I think about that, like, you know, at your house or my house, I think our wives go, gosh, it's just so hurtful when you, instead of that going through a lens that goes, what do you mean when I? It's more like, oh yeah, I'm reminded again, because I feel bad about the fact that it's not a criticism, it's not an indictment, it's not a judgment, it's just raising attention on something that's already broken within me that I generally already know about and have work to do on.